Shalom Israel, Brother Reggie Jr. here. So today, guys, I'm going to be reading Genesis chapter 35, just picking up where I left off from last time. And with that, guys, let's go ahead and get right into this. Genesis chapter 35, and I'm going to read verses 1 through 5 first. And it says, "And God said unto Jacob, Arise and go to Bethel and dwell there." Now, why did the Lord tell Jacob to go to Bethel? Because remember, in the previous chapter, Simeon and Levi, they killed Prince Shechem and they killed his father Hamor, and they slew the men of the city of Shalem. So naturally, all of the men of those surrounding cities are going to be pretty angry, and they're going to seek revenge on the household of Jacob. So the Lord, looking out for Jacob, told him to get up and go to Bethel. So let's keep on reading. And it says, "And make there an altar unto God that appeared unto thee when thou fleddest from the face of Esau thy brother." So the Lord said, you're going to go to Bethel, Jacob, and you're going to make an altar to me. Now, why are you going to make an altar? Because that is symbolic of you worshiping God. And yes, you, Jacob, you're going to worship me for the things that I'm about to do for you. All right, verse 2. And it says, "Then said Jacob unto his household," all right, "and to all that were with him," because remember, he had his wives, and then he had his sons, he had Dinah, and then he had a lot of man servants and a lot of maid servants. Okay, so he told all that were with him, he says, "Put away the strange gods that are among you, and be clean, and change your garments." So this lets you know, according to verse 2, that not everyone in Jacob's household solely served the God of all heaven and earth. A lot of them were, unfortunately worshiping idols. And we know one of those people, we can't say exactly who, but I know one of the people that worshiped those strange gods was Rachel, because that is documented in previous chapters of Genesis. Remember, she took that strange god of Laban. You think she just took it just to take it? No, she took that god because she worshiped that god. She liked that god. But Jacob said, hey, y'all basically need to sanctify yourself, and you need to cleanse yourself both physically and spiritually, because listen, the Lord is about to do a mighty work, and we're going to see what he's going to do. And so there's a reason why he told them, hey, put away them gods and clean yourself up, because something is going to go ahead and happen. Let's keep on reading to see what happened. Verse 3. "And Jacob said, Let us arise and go up to Bethel, and I will make there an altar unto God, who answered me in the day of my distress." And yep, because you're going to make that altar because you're going to worship God there. "And was with me in the way which I went." Verse 4, and it says, "And they gave unto Jacob all their strange gods." So all of those of his household, they gave him all of their idol gods, which were in their hand, and all their earrings which were in their ears. And Jacob hid them under the oak which was by Shechem. So they put away their gods. Now, let's see why the Lord told them to go to Bethel, and why they needed to cleanse themselves and be clean and sanctify themselves before the Lord. This is why. Verse 5. "And they journeyed." Okay, so they went to Bethel, and it said, what? "And the terror of God was upon the cities round about them, and they did not pursue after the sons of Jacob." So remember, I told you them surrounding cities of Shalem, they was going to come after Jacob and his household. But the Lord, looking out for Jacob, just like he told Jacob's father Isaac that he would look after his son Jacob and made sure that he would take care of him and keep him alive. Well, that's what the Lord was doing right here, taking care of Jacob by putting the terror and judgment on those surrounding cities. And don't ever forget, brothers and sisters, these Canaanites were exceedingly wicked before the Lord. So the Lord was busting them a new one anyway for that evil that they were doing, not only just to protect Jacob, but it was also to get his hands on them cities, these Canaanites, because of the stuff that they was doing, that evil that they was doing in the land. So whatever thought they had of we gonna go after Jacob, we gonna get his weed, well, all of that changed because the terror of the Lord was upon them. And you know what? This kind of reminds me of something. Because you know how the Lord, before he broke forth on them cities, he told Jacob and his household that they need to put away them gods and they need to clean themselves. Let's go ahead real quick and let's go to Exodus 19, because this is kind of what it reminds me of. Kind of reminds me of when the Lord was finna come down on Mount Sinai and what he told Israel. So let's go to Exodus chapter 19, and I'm going to read verses 10 through 15 if I can flip to the page. Okay, here we go. And it says, "And the Lord said unto Moses, Go unto the people," meaning the congregation of Israel, "and sanctify them today and tomorrow, and what? Let them wash their clothes," meaning let them be clean. Verse 11, "And be ready against the third day, for the third day the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai. And thou shalt set bounds unto the people round about, saying, Take heed to yourselves, that ye go not up into the mount, or touch the border." Don't even touch the edge of the mountain. "Whosoever toucheth the mount shall surely be put to death." That's how holy God is. He don't even want y'all touching the place that I'm my presence in, or you're going to be put to death. 13. "There shall not an hand touch it, but he shall surely be stoned or shot through, whether it be what? Beast or man. It shall not live. When the trumpet soundeth long, they shall come up to the mount." Okay, and it says, "And Moses went down from the mount unto the people, and sanctified the people, and they washed their clothes," meaning they cleansed themselves, they separated themselves. 15, "And he said unto the people, Be ready against the third day, come not at your wives," because the Lord wanted them pure up here. And why did the Lord tell them to sanctify and cleanse themselves, just like he told Jacob's household? He told them that because if they didn't, when the Lord was handing out that judgment, he would break forth on the Israelites. He would break forth on the household of Jacob. That's why he told them, hey, put them gods away, clean yourself up here, because I'm just telling y'all, when this judgment come out and you ain't sanctify yourself, you didn't remain unspotted from this world, you gonna get just what them Canaanites get. And that's why he told the house of Jacob, hey, put them gods away and cleanse yourself up here, because if you don't, I'm going to break forth on you. And likewise, brothers and sisters, right now we have to follow the same example. Before God bring terror on the United States, right now is your chance to sanctify yourselves and cleanse yourselves. That's why this word is going forth, because the Lord wants you to cleanse your mind. He wants you to sanctify, separate yourself from the heathen, because when this judgment get ready to go forth, you don't want to be in fear of that judgment hitting you because you weren't living right. Okay, but I can go on and on into that subject, but for the sake of this video, guys, let's continue to read. So now I'm going to read verses 6 through 8. And it says, "And Jacob came to Luz, which is in the land of Canaan, that is Bethel, he and all the people that were with him." So Jacob and his household, they finally made it to Bethel, or Luz. 7. And it says, "And he built there an altar to worship God, and called the place El Bethel, because there God appeared unto him when he fled from the face of his brother, and his brother was Esau." Verse 8. But Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died, and she was buried beneath Bethel under an oak, and the name of it was called Elon Bachuth." So now we find out finally from verse 8. Now we found out what Deborah's nurse's name was from Genesis chapter 24. Right? Because remember, Rebecca, when she went out with Isaac, let me re-say that. When Rebecca left to go join Isaac in marriage and stuff like that, when she went off, when she left from her father's house, remember Bethuel gave her, like handmaidens and stuff like that, but she also sent Rebecca off with her nurse, and we find out that Rebecca's nurse name was Deborah. So let's go to Genesis chapter 24 so we can get a little bit more context. I hate paraphrasing because you can't remember everything. Genesis chapter 24, and I'm going to read verses 58 and 59. And it says, "And they called Rebekah and said unto her, Wilt thou go with this man?" Meaning, will you go with Isaac? And she said, "I will go." So Rebekah, she was content on going with Isaac and being his wife. And it says in 59, and it says, "And they sent away Rebekah, their sister, there," meaning Rebekah probably had more brothers than just Laban. Okay, but it says they sent away their sister, and what? Her nurse, and Abraham's servant and his men. But right there it says her nurse. So her nurse went. So Rebekah's nurse went with her, and we find out now that nurse's name was Deborah. But anyway, that's besides the point. That's just something that I wanted to point out, because a lot of times those kind of nuggets are all in the Bible. Like in the Bible, sometimes it may say, and a certain man went with Barnabas, or a certain man went with Silas, and there was a certain man that came to Moses. Where sometimes, and I'm just making that up, but I'm just saying, sometimes you can find that certain man or that certain woman's name if you keep reading a few chapters ahead. Sometimes you could come to find the identity of said person. Okay, but now let's continue reading. Let's go back to Genesis 35, and I'm going to read verses 9 through 15. And it says, "And God appeared unto Jacob again when he came out of Padanaram, and blessed him. And God said unto him, Thy name is Jacob," and that was his name. But let's look what the Lord said. He says, "Thy name shall not be any more called Jacob, but Israel shall be thy name." And he called his name Israel. So the Most High, he changed Jacob's name from Jacob to Israel. Verse 11, and it says, "And God said unto him, I am God Almighty." And we're going to hear that I am. We're going to hear that again whenever I do the book of Exodus. All right. But the Lord says, "I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply." Now look at this now. He says, be fruitful and multiply. And we know that that's not going to happen right away. That is future, when the seed of Jacob becomes a nation. So that is this future. So now we're beginning to dive into prophecy. He says, be fruitful and multiply. A nation, okay? A nation and a company of nations shall be of thee, and kings shall come out of thy loins. Okay, we are very far, first of all, from there being a multitude of the children of Jacob, as well as we are way far from there being kings at this time. So verse 11 is dealing in prophecy. And when it says a nation, that is referring, when it says a nation and a company of nations, that is already prophesying of the split between the house of Judah and the house of Ephraim, the house of Israel, which is represented by the largest tribe of Ephraim. The 10 tribes, but nevertheless, the head of those 10 tribes is Ephraim, who are also known as the company of nations. So when it says a nation, you're dealing with the house of Judah. Okay, and when it says a company of nations, you're dealing with the 10 tribes led by the Ephraimites. Okay, but let's continue. Let's keep going, guys. Verse 12. And it says, and the land which I gave Abraham and Isaac, to thee will I give it. Talking about the land of Canaan. And to thy seed after thee will I give it. Will I give the land. Okay, so that land rightfully belongs to us according to God. Belongs to who? The Israelites. 13. And it says, and God went up from him in the place where he talked with him. 14. And Jacob set up a pillar in the place where he talked with him, even a pillar of stone, and he poured a drink offering thereon, and he poured oil thereon. And Jacob called the name of the place where God spake with him, Bethel. Okay, so now we are going to get into the deaths of Rachel and the death of Isaac, the father of Jacob. So let's go ahead and get right into this, y'all. I'm going to read verses 16 through 20. And it says, and they journeyed from Bethel. So now they're moving, the household of Jacob. They're moving again. They journeyed from Bethel, and there was a little way to come to Ephrath. And Rachel travailed. So Rachel is now having another child. Okay, and it says, and she had hard labor, because remember, at this time Rachel only, I believe, had Joseph, but now she's getting ready to have another son. But it says she had hard labor. So this labor right here was a life-threatening labor. Verse 17, and it says, and it came to pass when she was in hard labor, that the midwife said unto her, fear not, thou shalt have this son also. So the Lord, through this midwife, told Rachel, said, Rachel, don't worry, you're going to have this baby. The baby ain't going to die. Verse 18, and it says, and it came to pass, as her soul was departing. So whenever Rachel had this child, she could feel the breath of life leaving her. Okay, so she knew that she was dying. It was an inescapable feeling that she got. She knew she was dying. And in dying, when she had her son, it says that she called his name Benoni, but his father called him Jacob. Okay, Jacob. No, Jacob called him Benjamin. So his father called him Benjamin. So Rachel originally called him Benoni, but Jacob called him Benjamin. And what happened in verse 19? And it says, and Rachel died and was buried in the way to Ephrath, which is in Bethlehem. 20. And Jacob set a pillar upon her grave. That is the pillar of Rachel's grave until this day. So when Rachel resurrects, she's going to come out of that same grave with that pillar that's on top of it. But why did Rachel die in giving birth to Benjamin? Because the Lord remembered. I told y'all the Lord got a long memory, man. He remembered all the way back during that time of that incident that happened with Laban, and he remembered the things that were spoken. Okay, so let's go back real quick, because remember, Laban came looking for his idol god that was taken by Rachel. Okay, but of course, you know, Rachel hid it really well, so he couldn't find it. But there was something that Jacob said that the Lord ended up honoring. So let's go to Genesis 31, and I'm going to read verses 26, and it says, and Laban said unto Jacob, what hast thou done, that thou hast stolen away unawares to me, meaning you stole my God, and carried away my daughters as captives taken with the sword. Verse 32. Now this is something that Jacob said because he felt he was being accused of stealing his God, which he did not steal. So Jacob was upset, and Jacob said something. He says, and let me read 31 as well as 32. It says, and Jacob answered and said to Laban, because I was afraid, meaning that's why I fled, And it says, for I said, peradventure, thou wouldest take it by force my daughters from me, which he so hardly worked for. 32. Now watch this. This is something that the Lord had honored. With whomsoever thou findest thy gods, let him not live. Now that's all that I want to, well, let me just keep reading. Before our brethren, discern thou what is thine with me, and take it to thee. For Jacob knew not that Rachel had stolen them. So Jacob said something that God was listening to in honor. With whomsoever thou findest thy gods, let him not live. And even though Laban did not find those gods, even though he did not find his gods, which was with Rachel, the Lord knew. The Lord found the God, and it was with Rachel. So guess what? We don't want to say it, but the truth of the matter is, the Lord, he slayed Rachel. Based off of what was said in Genesis 31 and 32. The Lord got her out of there. And that is just the way it is. He got her on out of there, man. And you know, that was very unfortunate. You know, we didn't want to see our foremother go out like that, but you know, that's just the way it is. And that's why, brothers and sisters, we got to be careful about the things that we say, because that's why the Lord said the power of life or death is in the tongue. And sometimes we're quick to say things out of anger and just, you know, out of emotion in general, because we don't just say foolish things in anger either. We also say foolish things in our happiness as well. But sometimes the best thing to do, brothers and sisters, is to be silent, because though we don't think that anyone else is listening, the God in heaven, he is always listening. And so we have to be mindful of that, of when we speak. That's why King David, our father, that's why he said, see, the nighttime is the best time for men. There is wisdom in the night. Why? Because men at night, they what? They close their mouth, because what? They sleep. They speak fewer words. That's why there's wisdom in that night. Because the less you speak, the better off you're going to be in the eyes of the Most High. Okay. But that's it for that, guys. Let's go ahead and continue reading. I'm going to read now verses 21 through 26. And the reason why I break it up like that for y'all, Lord, the reason why I break things up like that, you know, how I'll read a certain amount of verses at the time, because there are so many events that can happen in one chapter that I try to usually capture those events instead of mushing everything together. So I'm going to read verses 21 through 26. And it says, and Israel journeyed, meaning Jacob journeyed, and spread his tent beyond the tower of Edar. And it came to pass, when Israel, Jacob, dwelt in the land, that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine. And Israel, meaning Jacob, heard it. Now the sons of Jacob were 12, and that's a great sin, because you were not supposed to go in unto the same woman that your father went in unto. But Reuben did not care. Reuben did it anyway. Verse 23. And the sons of Leah, Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, is Simeon and Levi and Judah and Issachar and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel. Okay, before I read that, let me go ahead and go to verse 22 again, where it says that Reuben went in and laid with Bilhah, his father's concubine. See, this is the reason why Reuben's birthright ended up being taken, because of that sick act that he committed. So let's go ahead real quick, because it's spoken of in 1 Chronicles. Let's go to 1 Chronicles chapter 5. I always have a hard time flipping for some reason. 1 Chronicles chapter 5, and I'm going to read verse 1. And it says, Now the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, meaning Jacob, for he was the firstborn, because naturally the birthright belongs to the firstborn child, the firstborn male. It was supposed to, the birthright was supposed to go to him. Okay, but it says, but for as much as he defiled his father's bed. And how did he defile his father's bed? Well, that goes back to Genesis 35 and 22, and it says that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine. That's how he defiled his father's bed. So what? His birthright was given unto the sons of what? Joseph, meaning Ephraim and Manasseh, the son of Israel. And the genealogy is not to be reckoned after the birthright. So because Reuben committed that act, that immoral act, his birthright was taken away from him and given to Joseph, or the sons of Joseph, which is Ephraim and Manasseh. So Reuben screwed up his birthright by doing that. So now we're going to continue to read. It says, now the sons of Jacob were 12, verse 23. Now the sons of Leah. So these are all the sons that came from Leah. Reuben, which is Jacob's firstborn, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. So Leah had the so-called hard-hitting tribes of Israel. Verse 24, and it says, the sons of Rachel, Joseph and Benjamin. So Rachel ended up having the sons of Israel that would multiply or be the largest tribes of the children of Israel, 25. And the sons of what? Bilhah, which is the concubine, Rachel's handmaid, had what? Dan and what? Naphtali. Verse 26. And the sons of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, Gad and Asher. These are the sons of Jacob, which were born to him in Padanaram. So Jacob had all his sons by 4 different women. Okay. Verse 27. Just making sure I'm reading this right. Okay. It says, and Jacob came unto Isaac, his father, unto Mamre, unto the city of Arba, which is in Hebron, and where Abraham and Isaac sojourned. And it says, and the days of Isaac were 180 years. So Isaac lived 180 years. And what happened in 29? And Isaac gave up the ghost and died. So Isaac finally died, gave up the ghost. And it says, and he was gathered unto his people, being old and what? Full of days. And his sons, Esau and Jacob, buried him. So that means, that lets you know Esau came from Seir. Jacob, he came from wherever he was, and he went to go bury his father, Isaac. So that's unfortunate, y'all. But that is the way of all men and women. That's why we got to live right while we can. Live a long and God-filled life, because that's where we're all headed. We're all headed back to that grave, if we're not fortunate enough to see the Most High return. So, yep, that ended all the days of Isaac. So Isaac is officially out of the picture, and now we're only left with Esau and Jacob. So that is it, guys, for that chapter. I hope you guys got some understanding. And in the next chapter, we're going to get into the descendants of Esau. And there's some pretty interesting things in chapter 36 that I want to point out. But we will get there whenever I get there. And I hope you guys got some understanding. And with that, shalom.